Hey everybody, welcome back to Flyin Miata. In video 5 of our NC Turbo installation series, we're going to be installing our power steering reservoir relocation kit, our battery box, our airbox, our compressor inlet hose, our PCV kit, and our bypass kit. That's a lot of stuff, so let's get started. All right, let's get started with our power steering kit. Now first, we need to relocate the pressure line slightly. So you can see it's secured here in this bracket. We need to push it out of this bracket. We need to make room for the compressor outlet hose. So now we want to secure it further down, and to do so, we're going to remove this bolt using a 10mm socket. We're going to use the P-clamp provided in the kit to secure the hose down lower. And definitely make sure you reattach your ground. Flatten out this ground strap a little bit. Now before we call this done, we need to double check that our hose isn't going to be rubbing on the timing cover here. And we are just touching, so we're going to just slightly tweak this metal line to pull it away a little bit. Now this turbo installation requires that we slightly relocate the power steering reservoir. Now in our last video, video 4, we did some preparatory cutting to be able to do so. So if you are just now tuning in with us, definitely check out our last video on how to make those cuts. Now with our cuts made, we are ready to install our power steering relocation bracket. So it's going to install down in place using the original mounting points for the power steering reservoir. But first we need to remove this ECU bracket bolt. We'll remove it using a 10mm socket. We're going to drop our bracket into place. We're going to take the 30mm bolt supplied with the kit and just get it started into the ECU bracket. And then we're going to use the original power steering reservoir mounting hardware to secure our bracket to the chassis rail. We'll get those tight using a 10mm socket. And now we can remove the 30mm bolt. Now we'll take our reservoir. We have the hole over here on the left when viewed from the front of the car. So we're going to put the peg of the reservoir into that hole. We are putting the reservoir out of its normal position, so it does require a little effort. We'll now take our 30mm bolts, the one with the shoulder. They will go in the rear hole adjacent to the ECU. And our shorter 20mm bolt will go in the forward hole. Now we'll get those started. Now double check that your power steering lower flange is sufficiently cut to clear the ECU. And double check that your power steering return hose clears this tray that we cut earlier. If any trimming is necessary, go ahead and do that now. And if everything looks good, we can finish tightening our hardware. Now you'll have noticed as you put the reservoir into place that you were getting some resistance. That's from this upper feed hose for the power steering. So we're going to remedy that by loosening the clamp at the top of the reservoir. So just slide it up the hose a bit. We're going to then allow the hose to rotate forward just slightly. That will alleviate the tension that the hose is causing on the reservoir, and then we'll put the clamp back into position. So we'll use some long needle nose pliers, liberate the clamp. I might go farther up so I can grip the hose. So we clock the hose over a little bit. Now it's not causing any pressure on the reservoir. We put the clamp back into position. All right, now it's time to move on to our battery bracket. So we provide a new battery tray that also provides a relocation of the battery. Now you'll remember that we left our compressor outlet hose off the compressor for now, and that's so we can get our battery bracket into place. So it uses the exact same mounting points the original battery tray used. So we will drop it into place and secure it with the original 4 bolts. We'll tighten those down with a 10mm socket. All right, so the battery tray has an accommodation for one of these clips on the power cable. That prevents it from going into the belt. Now pay attention to your ground cable before you clip that in place. Make sure it's on the driver's side of that clip. All right, with our battery tray fully installed, the next thing we need to do before we can finalize our compressor outlet hose is to relocate this harness slightly. As you can see, the harness passes right in front of the compressor outlet. So we're going to disconnect the harness clips from the top of the alternator, from this point on the valve cover and this point on the valve cover. That will allow us to drop the harness down, giving us some slack to run it over the compressor outlet hose and down next to the ABS unit. So using some needle nose pliers of various lengths, we're going to unclip those connections. Now, these can be difficult to access. Since we're no longer using the clips, you can just cut them instead. Or sometimes they just break, like both of these just did. Now with that harness having some slack on it, we can now finish routing our compressor outlet hose. So we'll preload it with a clamp. This orientation is ideal. And run the silicone till it's butted up against the elbow. Now a helpful hint here is you see the zip tie. It's just waiting to scratch you. So if you just push it around, now it won't. That will allow us to get our clamp in place. I gotta loosen mine up a little bit first. If you get it a little bit behind the ABS plug, you can get an extension and a socket onto it. And then we can tighten it down. Now, before we get too tight, let's double check our routing. We want to make sure that we have some clearance on the battery box. We want our bypass ports to be pointed roughly straight up. We want to make sure we have some gap between the hose and the frame rail here. So we have gaps everywhere we need it. So we will finish tightening. So now if you wish, you could secure the harness to this metal bracket using a zip tie from our miscellaneous bag kit. So put it in place, cut off the tail. With our compressor outlet finally in position, we're ready to install our battery. Now we are using a new battery in this install only because the car needed it. You are able to reuse a standard battery. Drop it into place. And now we're going to secure it using the provided battery bracket. Now we're reusing the original J-hooks. We want the J-hooks to point out away from the bracket on each side. Careful not to touch your terminals. And drop our bracket down into place. Loosen up your J-hooks enough to go underneath the hook. And now we'll just give those a little cinch. So with the battery in place, we can go ahead and hook up our positive terminal. We want to leave our negative terminal off until we're done with the installation. Now this car has an aftermarket something rather installed, so it's got an extra wire that you will not have. Okay, and we'll put our cover in place. All right, now we can move on to installing our airbox. Now before we put the airbox in the car, we're gonna do a little bit of pre-assembly at the bench. So we have our lid, our airbox, some small edging, and some weather stripping. So we're gonna start with our small edging. We need to line the bottom edge of the box where it will ride on the chassis rail to prevent it from scratching. So we're gonna do a piece here, short piece here, and then across the bottom edge. Now there's enough extra of this that you can put it in other places, wherever it might be chafing against headlight wiring or wiring on your harness. If you have anything extra, we hopefully have enough extra of this to protect what you need. So, using some strong side cuts, we will put it in place where we need it and cut it to length. And one more piece of pre-assembly. We have a little damper foot that's going to install in the hole on this forward bracket. All right, now before we put the airbox in the car, we need to do a couple small things. First, we need to find this bracket that supports the AC line, and we just need to back the nut off to the end of the stud. And then over here, this clip needs to be removed. Now we'll take our airbox and we'll fit it into place. This slot here in the back is for this tab. And you may be required to kind of work the AC line and this harness over a little ways to make room for the box. Now we'll take one of the bolts in the 1/4" spacer provided. We'll feed the bolt through the square hole at the back of the shock tower flange here, through the spacer, and into the captive fastener on the airbox. We'll get it threaded in, but left loose for now. Over here on the front, we just need to seat our airbox to our flanges there. Get the hanger out of the way here. All right, with our airbox in place, we need to deal with our AC line. Now our AC line does pass where our compressor inlet hose will need to be, so we do need to tweak it slightly. So we'll be bending it down. Kind of pay attention to the line as a whole. You know, as we move it down over here, we may need to pay attention to where it's contacting things over here. So we're gonna just tweak our line. Once we're happy with its position, we have a P-clamp included with the kit. That'll slip over the AC line and attach to this threaded fastener in the airbox using one of the bolts provided. And we'll tighten that down with a 10mm socket. I'm just checking the rest of my AC line over here, making sure it's clear. Now we have our harness. Now the harness has a couple harness clips. For the forward harness clip, we have a hole in the airbox for it to clip into. So with the airbox fully in place and some things hooked up to it, now we can finish tightening our fasteners that secure the airbox to the chassis. So our final step on the airbox portion is to add some gasket material. Now as our compressor inlet hose comes over, it's going to pass into the airbox, and we want to seal that hose from engine bay air. So we're going to use gasketing material. Now our airbox lid clamshells the compressor inlet hose. So we need a semicircle of gasket material that attaches to the airbox to seal the bottom. And we'll do a similar semicircle of material that attaches to the airbox lid on the top. So we'll take our material, run the channel over the edge here. Now I'm going to start just a little bit above the top edge of that semicircle. But I want to push it in place and make sure it's fully seated. Now I'm going to make a mark where I want to make my cut, and I'll make the cut at the bench. So again, just a little bit above the edge of the metal, maybe a 1/4 inch. We'll make our mark, and we'll make our cut. You need some heavy duty shears because there is some metal retaining clips in here to help it secure to the sheet metal. Now we'll put our piece in place. All right, we're fully seated. Now we're moving on to the compressor inlet hose, where we're gonna concurrently install the air filter and the bypass valve at the same time. So, take your air filter, be sure to remove the plastic, very important step. We're now gonna take the coupler supplied with the compressor inlet hose and slip it into this end of the hose, parallel to the bypass port. You want to get it about halfway. And then we will install one of the big clamps. Now I'm going to have the tightening portion of the clamp be opposite of the bypass valve port. We'll tighten that up with a 10mm socket. Actually rotating the clamp to where the tightening thing is going to be on the bottom. Now we will take our filter. Now the neck of the filter has a slight angle to it. We want the filter to angle up in this orientation. So we're going to feed our filter onto the coupler. But we're going to leave this clamp loose for now, because as the filter goes into the airbox, we may need to clock it for it to fit. Now we'll take our bypass valve and one of the clamps. This is the clamp that was provided with the compressor outlet hose. We're going to install that in the car. So we'll put the clamp on. I'm having the tightening portion be opposite of the battery. And we're going to put the base of the bypass valve into the compressor outlet hose, and the bypass portion pointing toward the back of the car. And we will fully tighten that clamp with a 10mm socket. So this is where we have to get a little crafty. We need to put our compressor inlet hose in place with our clamp on the compressor side and our clamp on the bypass side in place, while we also stick the filter into the airbox. It will take some maneuvering, so just use some patience. And now we have to feed the bypass port onto the hose. Give it a little maneuvering to where it's all in place. So now with everything in place, we'll go one at a time and tighten up our clamps. So we'll start back here. And I'll do the bypass clamp. And you'll notice I have the tightening portion away from the battery. That just gives us one less thing to accidentally hit when we're working on our battery. And the air filter clamp is actually an 8mm socket, so we'll tighten that up. So the air filter basically will rest in at an angle somewhat parallel to the inner fender liner. It will be basically up against the back of the headlight. And we want just a little bit of clearance between it and the airbox on this side. Now with our compressor inlet hose in place, we are going to do preparations for our airbox lid. Now I do prefer to leave this off the car until we are done, just to prevent it from getting scratched, but we'll go ahead and do our preparations now. So we have our remaining gasket material. We need to line this entire outer edge with the gasket material. So I'm going to feed it onto one end, butting it up right to the edge. And then I'll feed it on all the way across. I'm gonna mark my cut, take it off, and make my cut. And now we will install it for good. Now the last remaining section of gasket material is to clamshell on top of the compressor inlet hose. So we have the semicircle here on the airbox lid flange. And similar as before, we want to have it extend a little bit past the edge of the metal. Make sure it's fully seated into place. We will mark our cut, remove it, cut it, and then final install. Now before we call that done, let's go ahead and do a test fit. Just make sure we don't need to trim any of this gasket material any farther. So I'm gonna just push this into place, line up my bolt holes of the lid, and just make sure that it adequately sandwiches the intake, which it does. So we'll call that done. All right, now we're going to work on our PCV system. So this is the former PCV vent tube. So we need the 90-degree fitting off of here, and they happen to be the same. So pick a side, doesn't matter. But what we need to do is we need to cut off the nylon tube. So you want to take a fresh razor blade, and we're going to score the tube and try to break it free of the fitting. We do not want to cut too deep because we do not want to gouge the barbed area. Well, once we're off the barb, I'm actually going to cut down into the hose, into the tube. So you can use a screwdriver, kind of determine if you're able to pop the line or if we need more scoring. There we are. Let's crack that tube off. No significant gouges in our barbed, so we will be able to use this. If you do mess up your one barb, remember you have another one to try, so just make sure you don't mess them both up. All right, now that we have our PCV elbow, we're gonna go in and install it on the valve cover. So slip it onto that port. Support the port. We don't want to ever break this. So once it's snapped into place, we'll point it forward. We'll now take our flying noodle, which is long enough to reach alternative valve covers if you have some wonky engine swap. But basically we want to route our noodle to where it matches our elbow. Go ahead and cut the hose to length and then slip it on to the barb. And that completes the PCV. Now there's one more thing you can do. This is no longer necessary. This used to carry the PCV tube around to the intake. Since it's no longer necessary, we're gonna just remove it. All right, thank you for joining us for video 5 of our NC Turbo installation series. In this video, we covered the relocation of the power steering reservoir, the relocation and installation of the battery, the airbox, the compressor inlet hose, the bypass valve, and the PCV system. If you have any questions over anything that you've seen in this video, reach out to our tech support team. They'd be happy to help you out. And if you liked the content of this video, go ahead and give us a like, and be sure to subscribe to this channel for more content like this. And be sure to join us for video 6, where we're going to install our new vacuum line. We're going to replace our map sensor, we're going to replace our injectors, and we're going to relocate our evaporative emissions solenoid. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.